but I do want to give you some important information to really set the record straight in terms of what it is that makes AP Research different than AP Seminar, because last year was really critical to you guys in terms of preparing you for what you're going to do this year. But at the same time, AP Seminar is a very different animal than AP Research. And one of the things that we often, that often gets convoluted as students are coming into AP Research is that when they hear that word research, they think a lot about what they did in seminar. They think about reading a bunch of existing articles, research that is out there. And up to this point, that's probably what you've come to know as research, right? You want to research something, you just read a lot of articles about it, right? Isn't that what we did in seminar? Well, when we talk about research in this way, we're talking about something a little more specific and a little more unique. We're talking about research of your own creation. And this is different than the kind of research that involves looking into existing material. So I want to go through just really quickly an introduction to the course, an introduction by way of comparing really what AP Research does in comparison to AP Seminar. So let's think about it this way, right? You're at one of those fancy cocktail parties or something, right? Let's say, and you find yourself in a really interesting conversation about, let's say, forest fires, and you find that as you're discussing this topic, right, a lot of people have different things to say about it. Maybe some of them have more information than others, and what you find is that through this really interesting conversation, right, you manage to learn a lot. One of the things about this is this kind of scenario of sitting there and becoming part of the conversation is that often is what we equate with research. We think, okay, well, I learned a lot about a topic. I was able to put a lot of those pieces together. Isn't that research, right? But sometimes somebody comes to the conversation and they have something new to say, right? And that is what new research does. New research breaks new barriers, asks new questions, or takes pre-existing questions and either reapproaches them or re-examines them. And so what we're talking about with AP Research is not just being in the conversation and understanding it. That's really what you did in seminar, right? You learned about topics, you began to understand and put together ideas in a conversation. But that was an existing conversation that you became a part of. Instead, you want to think about being a person in AP Research who is either starting a new conversation or contributing in a new way. We're no longer just listening and putting ideas together. We're instead maybe offering new information. And so another way of thinking about this is to think about like the way that artists train themselves, or really any creative type, right? If you're a painter or a musician, you might understand this. Even athletes understand this too, because how do we learn about anything? Well, we learn about it by understanding the masters, right? And when anyone tries to learn painting, for instance, they might study the masters. They might look at Da Vinci and other classical painters in order to understand their techniques and methods. And that's because those painters, like anyone else throughout history who contributed something, they created something new. And we can learn from those things. And AP Seminar is the same way. You examine current existing research by synthesizing and analyzing ideas that existed already. It's understanding and development through exposure. The thing you were doing at AP Seminar is very similar to what an artist or a fledgling artist tries to do by imitating an artist, right? By looking at an existing painting and trying to recreate it. Likewise, we learn a lot about how to play the piano by playing the classics, right? By looking at existing work and being exposed to it and breaking it down and really analyzing it, we begin to understand those techniques, those methods. But that is all really just background, right? To get to a place where we're contributing new material. And that's what AP Research is. So AP Research is when we take all the material that we learned by studying the classics, by studying the existing research, and we begin to develop our own product, right? Just like a new artist might come out with a new way or a new method or a new technique, right, for approaching art. Oftentimes that is by way of studying the classics, right? Even artists like Picasso, who really, push the boundaries in terms of art and changing the art world, oftentimes their early work, right, was based in the classics. So it's about learning techniques and methods, but then being able to adapt those methods to your own goals. In research, you're, by way of studying how other people research your topic, you're going to start to understand how you might apply techniques and approaches and strategies to maybe understanding something new about your topic. In other words, you're going to be contributing something new. You're no longer just imitating and trying to recreate the Mona Lisa. Instead, you're trying to create something new to your field, a new contribution, a new addition to that ongoing conversation. Okay, so we're adding to the conversation in research. Well, what does that mean? It starts really by exploring, right? Exploring an academic topic, a problem, an issue, an idea of your own individual interest. And that is bolded for a reason, because at the end of the day, this is a course where you're going to spend an entire year with a singular topic. And if you don't love or care about that topic, if you're not passionate about that topic, you're going to find it very difficult to do quality work. You're also going to find it very difficult at times to grasp the topic. So that said, make sure that this is a topic that you have an individual interest in. We are going to work through it because passion is one thing, but practicality is another. And it's important that your topic, whatever it is something that can be researched and is researchable, as well as something you're interested in. So the other thing is you're going to work this year to design, plan, and conduct a year-long investigation to address a research question. So having a topic is step one, and that's what we're going to actually start working on today. But step number two really is developing a question about that topic. Okay, what about that topic do I want to understand? And it really needs, part of your initial investigation is going to be figuring out what questions haven't really quite been answered conclusively in your field. Because if it is something that you can simply look up existing research and find an answer to, right, then what you're really doing is just what you did in seminar. You're reading existing information to provide an answer to a question, right? Instead, in this class, you're going to try to find what we call a gap in the research. That is, somewhere, some part of that topic that hasn't quite been addressed by existing research. Something new that you can contribute to the field. So you're also going to further the skills you acquired in AP seminar, right, by learning research methodology. So you probably looked at a lot of articles that talked about how they did their research, right? Maybe they conducted a study, maybe they did a survey, maybe they had an experiment where they tricked people into believing they were doing something they weren't, right? All of those different methods are ways of approaching research. And you're going to be exposed to and educated about a lot of those methods in this year so that you can begin to think about which of those methods might be the best tool for you to answer your own question. You're also going to learn about employing ethical research practices. What that means is you're going to learn about what are some of the things you have to think about to keep your subject safe, right? A lot of times, we can get wrapped up in trying to do research, forgetting that oftentimes our research might involve people. And so you have to think about things like keeping their information private or not exposing the people in your experiments or your surveys to harmful topics or things. And so you're also going to be engaged in thinking about, what's going to be ethical here and designing a piece of research that is going to be safe and not unethical. You're also going to be accessing, analyzing, and synthesizing information. Yes, that sounds like what you did in seminar, right? Because you're taking a lot of information that's out there and you're putting it together. You're thinking about what's the conversation here. That's absolutely going to be a part of this course. But it's all background so that you can begin to understand what new thing can I bring into this conversation. So, since this is about you contributing something new, right, that something really is what we would call a product, okay? So what do the products of research look like in this class? What does it all amount to? What is it that we're trying to create this year, right? This course is going to culminate in what we call an academic paper of approximately 4,000 to 5,000 words. It's big, right? It's probably not going to be the biggest thing you ever wrote, but it is going to be very, very vetted. This is something that you're going to work on throughout the year, developing, drafting, and redrafting. And you're going to find as you go, you're going to find yourself sometimes going back and really changing things up, sometimes in major ways. Now, The other thing is your academic paper might be accompanied by a performance or an exhibition of the product where applicable. And for many of you, this will involve a formal presentation. So the other piece of this, the other product, is not just the research paper that shows the results of your own research. It's also going to be a formal presentation to a panel with an oral defense. Now, what that means is you're going to be expected to answer specific questions about your research. And not just what you learned, right? You're not just trying to prove it right. You're also trying to prove that your method, that your approach to the research was also effective. So you're defending not just what argument you're making ultimately, you're also defending the process itself, the choices you made along the way to discover whatever it is you discovered, right? So there's two different ways you're going to be presenting products of your research this year. Now, I want you to know that academic paper is the biggest one. It's weighted at 75% of your AP score. It's worth noting these weights are for your AP score. So 1 through 5, what you're getting, 75% of that counts on your paper. That is the last thing we turn into AP. It's what we turn in at the end of the year around May. Presentation and oral defense, we're going to be doing those around March, right? Early spring. This is where you really get a chance for the very first time to show the world the results of your individual research. And you're going to be sharing that in the form of a 3-person panel that's going to ask you questions about your research. They're not there as a panel, by the way. It sounds really intimidating, panel. They're not there to run you down, run you out of town, and ask really mean questions. Instead, they'll be asking you questions that simply give you an opportunity to explain yourself a little better so that AP can really evaluate you well. So those are the products of research. That's ultimately what we're aiming at. But a lot of people get stuck on understanding what are the differences between what the paper we wrote in seminar and the paper we wrote in research. So some major differences to note here is, let's take a look on the far left here of this chart, right? The AP seminar paper, the one you did at the end of the year, it really was an introduction of an argument and a topic, right? So it did involve an introduction. That's a feature of our research paper as well. But one major difference is that in AP research, you're going to try to find a gap in the knowledge base. That is, what's an area that's not being explored, that hasn't quite been satisfactorily answered in that topic, right? That's something new that you're going to be doing this year. 2 areas that the seminar paper didn't do, right, is they didn't address a method, process, or approach. This year, you're going to be expected to discuss in your paper a method. That is an overview and a rationale for why you chose to research a certain way. Research, again, this year isn't going to necessarily just involve you pulling up a lot of articles and writing about them and analyzing them. Instead, it might involve you designing a survey or designing an experiment or perhaps doing some sort of in-person interviews with people. There's a lot of different ways you can approach this, but you're going to be expected to design something that you're actually going to do in the world. The other thing is results, right? Obviously, if you're not practicing some sort of method, conducting some sort of outside research, you probably aren't going to have results. So that is something new in this paper as well, is that you're going to be expected to report on your own findings. Perhaps in seminar last year, you saw some papers that did this. They had charts, they had tables of information that they had themselves collected out in some field. That's exactly what you're going to do too. And so learning how to report those findings and connect them to your research question is going to be part of this course too. One thing that is going to be very familiar to you is your ability to discuss, analyze, and evaluate ideas. You are going to do that just like you did in your AP seminar paper, except one major difference is that rather than discussing someone else's ideas, right, and analyzing their ideas, you're primarily going to be focused in this paper on analyzing the results, analyzing the data that you found, and trying to understand, what does that data show me? What does that data indicate? Whether it's the answers I got in an interview or the results of an experiment that I performed. You also included a conclusions section, right, where maybe you made some conclusions about an existing argument or a field of argument, right? In AP research, your conclusions are primarily going to be drawn from your own research. And you're going to hopefully provide some future directions. That is, reflecting on where should people go from here. You might have even seen some of this in seminar last year where you read an article and the researchers suggested or recommended that maybe other researchers could do something new or take the research in a new direction, right? Likewise, you're going to do the same thing, looking at what is it that I was able to contribute, but also what are some new questions that were raised by my research, questions that maybe other researchers could take on themselves. And then finally, you are going to be engaging in a bibliography, a works cited of some sort, right? It's worth noting that your style was not prescribed last year in terms of seminar and what kind of style you used. This year, your bibliography or works cited is going to be dictated by the topic you choose. Some fields have different kinds of styles. MLA, for instance, is used by English style. APA is used primarily by the social sciences and the hard sciences. Chicago style is used by law and in many cases by business writing. The kind of topic you choose to go into in many ways is going to prescribe the style of writing you use for your paper. We will get into all that, and I know this is a lot to take in, but what I really wanted to do just real quick was to give you that 30,000 foot view, okay? Just 30,000 foot view of what some of these big differences are. So as you can see, the big difference is your individual contribution. You're bringing something new to the table, right? You're designing something new and adding it. So the process of research looks kind of like this. This is an overview of our semester 1 and semester 2. You are, through this class, going to be reflecting on your development and documenting this process through a reflection portfolio. There's going to be a variety of different pieces you're going to be doing along the way to ultimately create this paper and this presentation. And these are all part of your Carmel grade, not your AP grade, but your Carmel grade, right? So semester 1 here's the breakdown. You're going to be creating what we call a proposal form, where this is our first thing, 20% of the grade. You're presenting, what do you propose to do with this year? What topic are you going to write about? What question are you trying to answer? This is where you just set up, here's what I propose to do with the year. Here's what I propose to do with my research. Your annotated bibliography is going to be focused on understanding the existing research. This is very similar to what you did last year as you looked through the existing arguments around a topic, right? It's going to feel very similar because what you did in seminar, all those skills are going to feed right into that bibliography, okay? Your prep binder is a collection of journals. These are reflective pieces where I'm going to ask you from time to time to think about, where are you at in your process? What are some of the things that you need to be doing next? A lot of what you get to decide to do this year is your own time management, your own task management, your own choices, and you have a lot of them. So one way to help you is to get you writing about it and thinking about, what is it that I know? What is it I don't know? What are the steps I need to take next? And then the other piece is an academic paper outline, where I'm going to be asking you guys to outline and start planning out what is your paper actually going to look like. Okay. Formative assessments, as you can see, 10% in each semester. It's worth noting that some of this grade distribution might change to some extent. The academic paper, the primary piece, and the second semester with your oral defenses. You can see a lot more smaller pieces in the early part of the year as we're sort of building up towards those final 2 products. And in the second semester, it's really about completing your research, everything you planned for in the first semester, and it's about presenting that research. So it is, again, it seems like a lot, and it is a lot in many ways. But when you start breaking it down piece by piece, if you really just stay focused on what you have right in front of you, you're going to find yourself managing it and managing it well. So, a couple policies you should know about with this class. The first one is the late work policy, okay? You can view the course calendar through our Canvas page at any time. I'm going to continue to keep that at the very top. I will show it to you in a second. It is right in the top center, though, of our homepage. I will continue to update it if there are any changes that have to be made to our schedule, and it's a possibility that there could be, but I will try to be as communicative as I can. All homework is due on the date indicated, even if you're absent. I do want you to know if there are extenuating circumstances. You just need to reach out to me, communicate with me, let me know what the situation is, but never assume that I'm just going to accept late work, okay? Because in general, the rule of thumb, especially in this high caliber AP course, is that, look, a due date is a due date is a due date. Okay, so even if you finish a product and you're like, this is going to be helpful to me, if you finished it late, you can't necessarily expect that you're going to get credit for it. Okay, due dates are very, very important in this class, so make sure that you're keeping up with that. Late homework does receive a 10% penalty per day it's late. I will allow you to turn in some late homework, but again, there's going to be a penalty. It's worth noting there's going to be a penalty. If you have special circumstances, again, I'm going to be flexible. Just communicate with me, okay? All right. AP products have specific deadlines. Those 2 products I told you about, the paper, the presentation, right? Those, I have absolutely no control over those deadlines. They are set by AP, and they have to be abided by. There are no exceptions to that. So it's worth noting that if there's any potential issue that you see regarding those deadlines, we have to be talking about it long in advance. And we have to have some very legitimate, out of your hands reason why that is even being discussed, because that deadline is completely inflexible and beyond my control as a teacher, okay? So no late performance or summative assessments can be accepted. We're talking about those major pieces that AP is requiring. Your process work will not be accepted for a late grade, so we're talking about like journals. This isn't like my own homework. This is like the stuff that's part of the built-in AP course. Those journals cannot be accepted for a late grade, okay? I ask that you still complete those journals, even if you miss them on the due date, because they can still be added in to your overall prep grade. What that means is that when at the end of the semester, all of your journals are going to be rated at once for an overall grade, okay? As time goes by, though, you're also going to get completion grades just for turning them in on time. You may not get your completion points if you turn it in late, but you still want to get all your journals done because your prep grade is going to count for all of those. Hope that makes sense. So again, coming back to that conversation, right? The goal this year then is that rather than simply being a person who can sit and understand the conversation, by the end of research, hopefully you will have something new to add to the conversation. That is research, and that is academic research, right? So it all does start with an inspiring topic, right? If you don't, if you don't have an inspiring topic, it's hard to go anywhere, right? We really want to think about, dating around with topics and really getting a feel for it. As you can see, this first date doesn't appear to be going very well, right? And the reason why I bring this up, this sort of dating metaphor, is that if you don't audition multiple topics, if you go with the very first one, you might end up getting married to the wrong guy, right? Because at the end of the day, you're spending a whole year with this topic. You are essentially getting married to it. You're going to be around the topic all the time. You're going to be thinking about the topic all the time. If you are not choosing wisely and really thinking through and taking the time to vet your topic, it might end up being very difficult for you to manage it. So you want to think realistically about your topic. You want to spend a lot of time thinking about your topic before you commit to it, okay? Don't just marry it on the first date. Really think about it for some time. That said, that is an introduction to AP research by way of comparing it to AP Seminar. I hope that was helpful to you. If you have questions, please feel free to message me on Canvas or email me directly. You can find my email on the syllabus that is on our Canvas site. The other thing you can do right after this then is take a look below in the lesson and take a look at the other items I've listed out for you to do today, because they're going to help you get taking your very first step in terms of thinking about that topic. I wish you all very well, and please, again, reach out to me as soon as possible if you do have questions. Have a good one.